you all for attending our Diversity and Development Open Panel discussion focused around the power of mentoring. At Gravitas, I've been fortunate enough to take on the role of regularly hosting events that enable the IT community to network, share ideas and opinions. Tonight's agenda will consist of an open panel discussion, followed by a Q&A session, and it will end with networking. Before our speakers introduce themselves, I want to say a few short words about why we chose this topic for today's discussion. The term mentoring carries different connotations for different people. Studies show that effective mentoring leads to greater career success, such as promotions, as well as increased opportunities. That being said, mentees should appreciate that it is not an automatic pathway to promotion. It is an investment into their personal and professional development. Tonight, we are going to discuss the topic of mentoring from a female perspective. At the end of our discussion, you'll receive an information pack as well as a questionnaire to fill out so that we can collate your feedback. If you'd be so kind to complete the form, leave the feedback with us as it forms the basis of future events. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our speakers.
Hi everyone, my name is Victoria Morgan and I am the Group HR Manager at Gravitas Recruitment. And I've recently joined 6 months in and really excited to share with you my discussion around mentoring.
Hello everyone, I'm Sam DeComble. My background's actually in biosciences. I started 2 companies, the latest of which is a direct-to-consumer genetic testing company. And I've been both a mentee and a mentor throughout that period, so it'll be interesting talking about both perspectives.
Hi everyone, I'm Shilpi Saxena. So I head the IT department at Read Online. So I have been both a mentee and a mentor, and I will talk about my experiences at various companies, which includes Read Online specifically and Amazon.
I'm Eloise. I am a senior developer at BigHand. I've been a mentee and I'm starting to be a mentor as well. And I've worked at Saga and Investec and I've had really good mentors there.
Hi, my name is Giselle Frederick and I wear a few hats, as they would say. One as a founder of a fintech startup and the other as a director of a consultancy. My career is predominantly within technology and finance, and I've been both a mentee and a mentor in the process.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for all introducing yourselves. To kickstart the conversation, as we know, studies have shown that effective mentoring leads to increased opportunities, it results in promotions. What are some of the benefits of having a mentor, being a mentor? So can we start with Sam and Vicky? If you can give me your ideas on this.
So I think for me, mentoring, it's an opportunity. It's almost a one-off opportunity to have to be in a relationship with a person with more experience that gives you an opportunity for collaboration, goal achievement, problem solving, and it's really one of the benefits for being a mentee. So my experience is around, I've written in-house mentoring programs, I've run mentoring programs within corporate organisations, as well as also being a mentee and a mentor. So I think the main benefits would be for the mentee to have the opportunity to drive their own development, so to have the opportunity to speak to an experienced mentor around the problems that are specific to them and the skills that they want to develop, and have a risk-free, confidential opportunity to discuss those with a person who can guide, help and advise them appropriately when needed to fulfil what their dreams, aspirations, career goals are. So it's a relationship based on trust, collaboration, and an opportunity for a mentee to realise what their potential is.
Sam?
That's a great answer.
I haven't practiced it at all.
Which makes it very difficult to add to, but I guess the one thing I'd say I'd always found with mentoring, both as a mentee and a mentor actually, it was also a way of letting off steam. So you've obviously got we all appreciate, you know, our mentors can give us access into networks, they can help us through their own experiences with our skills development. But actually they're a sort of safe space as well to discuss things like problems you might be having, and to, you know, frustrations you might be having that you might not be able to discuss in a work environment. Sometimes just letting off steam in that manner and having someone that understands, that perhaps has been there before, that can give you some guidance through some of the more personal issues around, in my case, starting up a business and being an entrepreneur, which is a very lonely place to be actually. There's not many people you can you can go to that really understand what it is you're going through. So also just having that person to sort of bounce off and to hear you out.
Yeah, absolutely. And Eloise, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, your answers have been so fantastic, I forgot the question.
I guess it's focused around what the benefits are of having a mentor and being a mentor. You know, what necessarily, you know, you've been in a situation where you've had mentors in the past, so even if you can talk about personal experiences of that and share that with the audience, that's great.
So from my perspective, I'm a software developer, and when you come out of uni, there's just so much that you think that you need to learn, and you just go overwhelmed by it, and it can be just really difficult to find out what you need to know. So you might go for a scattergun approach and try and learn everything at once, and that's never ever going to work. So a mentor for me guided me to say, these are the important things that you need to learn, and these are the important principles. Once you've got those, it makes it easier to pick up any language or any framework or whatever. So that really steered me in the right direction, saved me a lot of wasted time, like learning things that I didn't really need to know.
Yeah, absolutely. And Giselle, Shilpi, anything you can add to that?
For me, I think the relationship between a mentor and mentee is the most important thing. It's not about what you can gain out of it, it's about having that like safe space, as we talked about, where the relationship should be of trust. You should know the people you're connecting with. That is a really important. So if you can't connect to that person, if you can't trust that person, it would not, that relationship would not be fruitful. You would not reap the benefits out of it. So it's, for me, that is really important. Take time. As a mentor, I think I should, like, if I am mentoring somebody, I should take the time, invest in understanding that person. Do I understand that person as a rounded individual? Do I understand what his fears are, what his weaknesses are, or what his key strengths are? He or she might be talking to me about the weaknesses or the areas of improvement. But for me to have a successful relationship with, I need to understand what the key strengths are. So that, I think, is a really important aspect of a mentorship program. And secondly, what is also important is who can mentor you. So for me at Reed, this is entirely my personal experience. I used to head the quality assurance department, and I got promoted to head of development. And I have been an engineer, so it was really hard for me after 14 years to code back again. And I was like, where do I start? I have a responsibility for 45 old individuals who are experts at their field, and I would be heading them. So what should I do? So the way I approached the problem was, I started speaking to the engineers. They are the ones who mentor me, they are the ones who guide me, they are my technical expertise. If it is architecture, I speak to the architects. So I learn from each and every one of them, and that has helped me immensely. And I can talk now. So that is very important aspect of your role as well. So that was really helpful for me.
And Giselle, anything you can add to that?
So I think I've experienced mentorship in so many different ways. In the formal way, the informal way, male, female, corporate, non-corporate. But for me, I guess the key thing that I want to talk about is, as a mentee going into, because I feel like a lot of people might be going for mentor relationships. There might be more mentees in the room. I think it's important to understand where you're trying to get to, the goal, and have a plan, or have understand. Otherwise, you're wasting your time and you're wasting your mentor's time if you don't know what you want to get out of the relationship. So I know there are lots of corporate mentorship programs out there, and one of my, I guess, as someone that participated in them, and also someone that, you know, as a mentee and as a mentor, I could see sometimes people signed up just because they want to say they're part of the mentorship program, as a mentee and as a mentor. But you have to realize that if you commit to that relationship, you have to bring something to the table. And if you're a mentee, then you have to. I've done mentorship for getting promotion, or I've done mentorship just as a safe space. If I'm going into a new role and I'm not too sure, I find a mentor, someone that's been doing that role for a long time, to help guide me how to be very effective in that role. But as a mentor as well, if you committed to mentoring someone, you know, don't just put your hand up. Like, actually bring yourself and make yourself available. Yeah, and we could talk about the different experiences later on, but one of my least successful relationships was someone that were always too busy for a 6-month mentorship program. Like, I think had my second meeting like 4 months in. There's no point in doing that if you're not going to, you know, try to be available.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's very, very important to have a clear agenda and to have certain goals that you set. And at the same time, it's so important that when you have a relationship with someone from a mentoring standpoint, that, you know, you both have time for each other, because that's so key. I think that brings us onto the second topic, which is more focused around the difficulties or struggles of finding and identifying a mentor. We know that, you know, it requires management, it requires nurturing, it requires an opportunity for both parties to hold some form of accountability to that relationship. So, in your opinions, what are some of the challenges that you'd face as a mentor or a mentee? Can we start with you, Sam?
Okay, cool. So challenges. I guess I'll start from a mentee perspective, perhaps. Thinking that one through. So yeah, it's sometimes knowing. I think Giselle in a way has outlined it exactly as I would, in terms of understanding what you want to achieve from that relationship, because you need to know who you're going to target. Yeah. I've also done sort of formal mentoring schemes, which have been part of grants that I've applied for, where I've had to have the mentoring, and I've also gone out and sought my own mentors. And the most successful relationships have definitely been the latter, because I've known what I've needed, and I've gone and I've pursued individuals within my network, and this is where networking comes into its own, really. I'm a scientist, I'm a very introverted person. I hate being in a room full of people and having to network and talk with them. It's just
definitely out of your comfort zone.
As you can see. So it's something that I've had to develop through my career, is that confidence to just sort of go up and chat to people and to expand my networks, because the mentors that I have had great relationships with have come through really random associations, you know, events like this where you just get chatting to someone in a corner or over a sandwich.
Yeah.
And then you do the whole LinkedIn thing, you get the details, and a few months down the line you think, actually, that person would be the perfect person to help me out with this particular issue, and you drop them a line, and the one thing you find is that most people, when they're approached and when you ask them, they're actually very willing to help. I don't think I've ever actually been turned down when I've asked for help from any of my network. Some are more enthusiastic than others, obviously, depending on the time that they've got, and this is where, again, as you say, Giselle, respecting people's time is very important. And not wasting their time, and being very sure when you go into those meetings what it is that the agenda of that meeting is going to be. So yeah, I think that's from the mentee perspective.
Yeah, I think it'd be good to cover from the mentor's perspective. So Giselle, you've been a mentor, you've experienced both sides of the coin.
Yes, so I guess the worst part of to reframe that. So I guess being a mentor, the thing that frustrates me is someone that is not prepared for meetings, that don't have goals and objectives. I am a goal-oriented person, naturally. I'm good at planning. And there's nothing wrong with the first not being sure of what your goals are in the first few sessions. But then if you get, during our discussion, we identify the areas that you should work on, then I expect you to go off and do your own research and come back with a bit of an update. Nothing's worse than me scheduling another half an hour in my diary and then you turn up and you're at the same place that you were the last time we had a meeting a month ago. So I think one of the frustrations or some of the problems that I've noticed is it's people the mentee not being ready. I guess another one is the mentee expecting you to solve all their problems without putting in any effort. Or just the mentee just wants your network, which is the most hilarious one. There's nothing wrong. People do mentorship for different reasons. Sometimes it could be to get promoted, sometimes it is to get a new job. But you kind of have to click and you have to understand where everybody's coming from in these situations. Those are just two. Could say more.
Yeah. Shilpi? Thoughts?
I think Giselle has covered it all because I'm a very goal-driven person. So if somebody is not committed to the program or the relationship, that is worrying for me. Because for me, I would like to help somebody out and putting in time and effort to do that. And if it is not resonated, it's not good utilizations of the time for both parties. So I think that is one of the biggest challenges. Secondly, the personality. It is really important that you can work together because sometimes you might find somebody's excellent at something, but their way of working and their way of sharing that information might not be the right fit for you. So that is also important. Can you work with them? Can you learn from them? That is an important aspect. Sometimes people with completely different personalities, and that's why I talked about that relationship building. If you can gel with that person, if you have a rapport with that person, you empathize with each other and you can trust each other and rely on each other, then there's always a way forward. But if it is about gaining what I want to do because X, Y, or Z is good at something and I want to just learn from it, get the networking contacts, get whatever I can, get into meetings, get my promotion, that's not a fruitful relationship.
But
so
sometimes that's okay, in my opinion. Yeah. It's just the way it's done.
Yeah.
Don't grab and bounce.
Yeah.
Maybe agree that is the objective first.
Yeah, exactly.
of the relationship.
Yeah. So the thing is, obviously, if you want contacts, if you want something, be open about it. This is what I am here for. It saves the mentor time and you time as a mentee. But if you actually want to grow yourself and if there is something you want to learn from somebody, be aware of what he or she can give to you and understand where the limitations are and be open about it. So if you are not gaining what you aim to gain, be vocal about it because he or she might not even realize that he is not working in a way which is working for you. So that is an important aspect. I have found relationships work really well when I am a very open person and very blunt. So I make sure if something is not working for me, I make sure that the other person is aware. And till today in my career, I have always been appreciated for being honest. And that is really, really important because it clarifies what we are working towards together. So that for me is very important, I think.
Eloise, what are some of the challenges you faced as MNT? Because this is experience that you have, and I know I keep asking you about personal experiences, but it's important to know that. So can you shed some light on that?
Well, I think that this is a mutual thing. Like if you don't feel comfortable to say, ask a stupid question, then this is it's not going to work. Like you need to be able to ask those stupid questions because usually those give you the most information. And then the other flip side of it, if you don't feel comfortable to give constructive criticism, then again you're not going to give the mentee very much benefit. So feeling comfortable with each other, and you mentioned it as well. Everyone's different. Everyone's approaches to learning are different. Some people are visual, some people hear better, some people read better. So if the mentee-mentor relationship are incompatible with the ways they like to learn and give information, then that's not going to work either.
Absolutely, no, all of your answers were really interesting, and your points that you made were very interesting.
Can I just add, just add something from a different perspective? So, whereas I have been a mentor, actually my perspective on the challenges comes from I ran an in-house mentoring program where I matched 498 mentees with mentors across the globe, and actually, really importantly, is to know for the mentees to be clear on, as we've said, what their skills and development areas are, and then for the mentor to match those up with the expertise and the knowledge of the mentors. So I individually matched up 498 people across the globe with mentors, and then for me it was really important to coach the mentees how to get the most out of the relationship, and then also to coach the mentors, because what I found some of the challenges were is that from a mentor point of view, they would be quite excited to depart their knowledge, and actually it's really important to rein your advice in from a mentor perspective, and actively listen to what your mentee is looking to develop, and then tailor your advice and your stories to what your mentee is looking to get out of the relationship. And I've worked with some mentors over the years who are so excited to share that they're not actually listening to what their mentee wants to develop, so that they're not letting their mentee reach their own conclusions or find their own way to solve the problems or the challenges that they've got. So really important to sort of actively listen to your mentee, and then and to set some parameters in the relationship as well, to be really clear as a mentor and a mentee what you both expect from the relationship, what the how much time can you give your mentee, how much what if you're going to have formal meetings, what sort of contact will you have in between those meetings. And I think setting those kind of open parameters and having almost a mentoring agreement at the start of a relationship, be that informal or formal or however you want to do that, is really important and kind of alleviate some of those challenges that you might face as both a mentor and a mentee. So I think that's really, really important, and absolutely back up as a mentee. You need to drive the relationship, you need to come prepared, you need to show the progress you've made, and you need to put into effect some of the ideas you've got from the mentoring relationship, and be able to come back and prove that that's what you've done. Yeah. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, definitely. I think there needs to be a certain level of transparency that you have between the mentor and the mentee, and that's quite clear in all the points that you made. I guess moving on to another topic. I mean, interestingly enough, some of the greatest minds have had mentors in the past. So Mark Zuckerberg had Steve Jobs, Bill Gates had Warren Buffett, Sir Richard Branson had Freddie Laker. In your opinions, and again I'd like to get an overview of all your thoughts, how does one go about finding an effective mentor, and what specific steps, what protocols does one need to take that they can apply to that mentoring relationship so they get the most out of it? So I know that's quite a handful, but should we start with Shilpi this time?
Okay, so for me, I'll be very honest, only one mentor. I look up to only one mentor till today, and what he taught me was how not to be overwhelmed by a problem, and he instilled that in my DNA. So whatever situation I am in, he was he was director for software development, but he taught me when I am faced with the problem, how do I break it down? How do I think backwards, and how do I reach the solution? And that has helped immensely throughout the 80, after meeting him, 8 years of my career after that, because I do not panic in any situation. So for that reason, I really look up to him, and I can never thank him in my life for what he did to me as an individual. Apart from that, what I do on a day-to-day basis, I don't look for particular mentorship programs. I look around me. Sometimes it's really hard to dedicate that time to a formal mentorship program, and you might not find the person who's right fit for you. So how can you develop yourself, and how can you pick up skills while you're working with a group of because you work with a group of people, and each and everyone is good at something. So what I do is embrace those things from people who I work with. Like when I work with developers, they are so committed to the quality, the way they work. So I learn that from them. There are other job families I work with. Some people are really good with presentations, so I work with them and see, okay, this is how he did it. And I was really bad at I used to get really nervous, and there was one friend, a colleague of mine, and when she used to present, she was so comfortable and calm. And I asked her, I said, you are so good at it. And I just panic. It doesn't show to you, but I can hear my heart beats. And she said, all I do is when I stand up, I lift my, I stand up and I just push my weight upwards, and that calms me down. And that's all I did. And I was really calm at my presentations. I never used to forget anything. And these are little tips that really help you. So I look for mentors every day, on day-to-day basis. I know what my weaknesses are. I do not have extra time because my whole calendar is filled with meetings and invites. So all I do is the people I work with, whatever I like, I make that extra effort to reach out to them and learn from them. And that has helped me immensely over my career.
Yeah, and Vicky and Sam, what are your thoughts on this?
I guess I spoke a little bit earlier about how I actually have gone about getting mentors, so I won't go over that again, but I found that very effective to go and pursue, just as Shilpi said. Once you know what it is you're looking for, in some sense, you know the sorts of people that are going to be able to help you, and you just go and ask. It sounds really straightforward, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You can, I had a quick look actually, because I've not done formal mentoring programs, sort of applied for one before.
Yeah.
I've been put on them as a result of various things that I've done. And there are some out there. I can't comment on them because I've never gone through that process. So there is a sort of, I think I saw a Women in Tech one earlier today that you can apply for and be matched up with a mentor. But for me, I've been quite promiscuous with my mentors as well, so I've had a lot of them, and they've all helped at different stages of the journey. So it's not a case of, although we talk about how that relationship needs to be all about trust, and you kind of imagine it almost as a very long-term relationship, and it can be, but in a lot of cases you're actually using your mentors for a very short period of your career, a very focused period of your career, so you're getting something out of that relationship in that period of time, and then you move on, and it might not be, as we said earlier, you don't want to waste each other's time by continuing to have meetings when they're just not appropriate anymore. So it's a case of sort of don't worry about sort of just looking for the one, as Shilpi said. You could get mentorship from all around you, and it's just thinking about what it is you need and who you need to approach to get it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really key, that you don't just necessarily need to rely on one person for one particular skill. You can go to several different mentors, which is always really interesting. And Vicky, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I would echo exactly what Sam's just said. If you just need to be really clear what it is you want to develop and work on skill-wise, competency-wise at that time, and then look around you, look in your companies, look in your professional bodies. I'm a member of the CIPD, which obviously isn't relevant as such here, but we've got our own business mentoring program as part of the CIPD, so I would look to that for my development. In-house mentoring programs, networking events, looking at what you want to develop, and then kind of identifying the people around you who sort of excel in those areas, and just not being afraid to ask, because actually in my experience of mentoring and the programs that I've run, people are more often than not flattered to be asked to give you their knowledge, their skills, their time, their expertise. And actually the worst they can do is say, I haven't got time now, but they might be able to recommend someone who would be able to support you and help you. Yeah. So it's about being clear what you want to develop, and look for those skills and competencies in the people around you, the networks around you. LinkedIn, there's a lot of information around LinkedIn, so there might be someone posting around something that you're particularly interested in, and just reach out and try and connect with that person. And the worst they can do is say, I'm not available at the moment. you know, it's worth a shot.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really key in terms of what steps and what measures you can take in actually finding and identifying a mentor. But how would you get the most out of a relationship to make it a really successful one? So again, would you guys like to answer that? Louise, would you start?
Well, so my experience of mentoring was that straight after uni I went into like smaller companies and there were fewer people to help me with any problems I had. So at times I felt really quite stressed and like, oh my gosh, I can't fix this and it's got to be fixed, but I literally can't fix this. So it was a lot of spending loads of time on doing stuff that, you know, could have been shortened by having help around. So I made the decision to like move to a company that had more employees so that I could like ask people. I wasn't the like person struggling on my own, like the maverick, you know, like getting it fixed, spending all hours. So that really helped, like going to an environment where there were lots of people around me that I could ask for help and stuff, and building up that relationship with the mentor. Like, so the mentor at Saga was someone I worked with in the same team, so I got the most out of that relationship by literally just, we were sitting together pairing on things. I'd just see him like open something or do some shortcut and I was like, how did you do that? And you know, just by observing you see someone doing things in a completely different way than you'd think to do it yourself. And yeah, just talking about things, asking stupid questions. I think that's the most effective thing, being a mentee. Like, ask that stupid question, because I found that I got the best answers and they were like, oh, hang on, I never showed you that. Oh, of course you don't know that. So, you know, that was really effective.
Yeah. Was that?
Well, I think for me it's and I completely agree with everything that was said before. For me, to make the most out of a good mentor-mentee relationship is to have adequate feedback loop in place. That is so important. If you have goals and you have set milestones, then you need to make sure you report on them, and then you need to understand where you are or where you can be, understand what is preventing you from hitting those milestones. So, like I said, I'm very much goal-oriented. But also it's being able to speak the same language to some extent, and understanding the different way that your mentee, if it's more senior, you may be communicating with you in a slightly different language, or you know, and it, depending on the type of relationship you want to have. If it's peer mentorship, then it's a little bit different, because you might be at the same level, you might be doing similar jobs, and you're just helping each other solve problems. Yeah, and a bit of structure plus feedback loop plus understanding the language goes a long way in making an effective relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. No, really good, interesting points from all of you actually. I think we're going to move on to the different styles of mentoring, because you know we've briefly discussed it a little bit. You
Jumped
talked
the gun.
a little bit about that.
Sorry.
And it's quite an interesting topic. There's a lot to say about it. So we know that there are several different forms. We've got informal mentoring, which a couple of you mentioned, reverse mentoring, group mentoring, speed mentoring, near-peer mentoring. What's everyone's thoughts on these different ways to mentor? So can we start with you?
Great. The more mentoring, the better. I think that it's about what's the right mentoring for you at the time. So that there's a developmental mentoring. So and that's exactly what we've just been talking about, where you're looking at the particular skills that you want to develop at that time, and then the best person to support you in those particular skills, and not being afraid to kind of choose your mentor. It doesn't have to be a lifelong relationship. It's about being open and honest about what you want to get from that relationship, and once that's done, actually then maybe moving that relationship into a more informal and moving on to your next kind of developmental mentorship. So I absolutely think there's a place for all kinds of mentorship, and I've really interestingly was involved in a reverse mentoring program in a previous life as well, and that was exceptionally interesting, and giving sort of the younger generations the opportunity to mentor some of the leadership team on those challenges for maybe a different generation of persons around sort of social media, the tech space, all of that, and actually asking the millennials to mentor our leadership team. Not only opened our leadership team to some of the business challenges that were going on, and being able to kind of know what those challenges are, but also to give those different generation people the opportunity to have exposure to the leadership team, to kind of impact and drive some of the direction of the company. So I think there's a place for most kind of mentorships. We even set up a mentoring program for pregnant ladies in the company to match them up with somebody who had been through that or gone through that process within the company, and kind of help and support them in that respect. So I think mentoring can absolutely be tailored and driven from all aspects for whatever development areas that you want to address.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Sam?
Well, it was really interesting actually when Shivani told me about these different types of mentoring, because I hadn't heard of a lot of them. They were completely new to me as well.
Yeah.
So most of my experience in mentoring has been the very traditional developmental style mentoring. What I'll do actually is I'll pick up on one of the points that Vicky made, which is interesting about there being a sort of mentoring scheme for pregnant women.
Yeah.
Topical. Which is very topical for me in particular. But I have been through different challenges as a result of running a business and being pregnant twice. That have resulted in challenges for myself actually. Ended up going viral at one point because I was meant to be speaking at a conference in Brussels at 7 months pregnant, which is exactly where I am today actually. They revoked my invite after finding out that I would be pregnant, which seemed bizarre to me because this is a conference where I was going to be talking on encouraging STEM activities for women in particular, and I thought there can't be anything better surely than to say, look ladies, you don't have to put family on hold, you can still do all these things and have a family, and let's talk about how we can manage that. That was interesting. Did eventually get an apology, and unfortunately the conference was cancelled. But it does, being female, it does bring with it different challenges to some extent, and having female mentors available to talk with, so you can talk about those sorts of challenges. And this is, I've had both male and female mentors, and they're both important in their own ways. But what I've been able to talk about with my female mentees, a lot of the questions I'll get asked are very gender-specific questions, because they're the questions they can't ask to their male mentors. And there's actually a shortage of female mentors out there, so you overwhelmingly end up dealing with these issues, and it becoming much more, you don't necessarily spend as much time on the sort of skills development side of things, which perhaps they spend a lot of time with their male mentors, but actually on some of the sort of softer skills side of thing about, well, how did you manage, and actually practically what did you do in that scenario, and what can I expect if that were me. So I guess I just wanted to make that point, given that there was a sort of completely shoehorned it in there, but just the importance of actually promoting female mentors, and having the opportunity as a female mentee to actually speak with female mentors, I think is very important. So for all of us, as we go through our career, we talk about the reverse mentoring and the fact that you can sort of mentor up as well as down. We should all be considering it and thinking about, the women in our networks, that our own experiences can actually support and help.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Giselle, you've actually talked to me on the phone about reverse mentoring, and you had a slightly different opinion on it. So what are your thoughts on the whole reverse mentoring? A while ago.
So I haven't done a formal reverse mentoring program, but I have done one informally to provide feedback on what it is to be a millennial woman in finance.
Yeah.
It was very much informal. And what I find is a lot of the men, especially the senior men, they do not understand the problems that we're having. So very much a case of they don't understand that you'd need probably something like reverse a pregnancy mentorship. Why would you need this? Why would you need flexible working if you don't have kids? I don't understand why anyone would ask this question. I need to go to the gym. I need to take care of myself as well. I think all of these benefits should be available to everyone, not just the people with children. Otherwise, I have to wait a long time to get my benefits. I want my benefits. But I think from my experience in terms of different types of mentorships, mentoring I've been through, I've done the formal, the informal, I've done the informal reverse mentorship. But the one that is very impactful for me is the peer mentorship. And that is other women my age or other people within my industry, men and women, speaking to each other and helping each other get to the next level and helping each other overcome problems and the different challenges associated with either the industry or promotion cycles or managing like work-life balance. There was some point in my old corporate job where we created a little club because at the end of the evening there were only 4 people left in the office that was staying and working really late. It's not that everyone else left early, it's just we noticed by 8 o'clock we were still there and nobody else was there. And we formed really, really tight bond. And then we started that informal peer mentorship group where we are supporting each other. When it came to promotion, we realized that some of the other ladies maybe have the work like 3x work than we did. And others were needed help in Excel or different tasks. And we just started helping each other. And I think it's not just about getting someone more senior or getting someone to help you get to that next big goal or that big promotion, that big pay rise. It can just be helping your colleagues or helping your friends get to the next level and solving the problems. And it's a shift in mindset. You have something to give to someone else that is the same level as you as well. And there's one point where I thought I had to be super duper senior in order to mentor. Actually, I actually shied away from mentoring for a number of years because I never felt like I had anything to help with. I didn't feel like I had any particular skills, like I'm struggling just as much as anyone else, what I felt. But it was a manager that actually suggested that I should do some mentoring myself and I should at least take on the entry-level graduates because they're going through the same and they're facing the same problems that I faced. And even though I was around 4 or 5 years into the company, I still felt like I couldn't give anything back, and that was absolutely wrong. So consider yourselves as well. If you have a few years in industry, you still can help that intern or graduate or your colleague at least in peer mentorship schemes. It doesn't have to be formal, it could be very much informal, chat at the park type stuff.
That's quite an interesting point that you made about, you don't necessarily have to be senior in order to become a mentor, and I think that stems in nicely with how we can encourage more women to become mentors, essentially. So, Shilpi and Eloise, how would we go about doing that, encouraging more women?
For me, I think everybody should be encouraged. It's not just about women. But the thing is, if it is like, for me, one point I would like to resonate is when I came back from maternity leave, it was the hardest thing to do because I felt I had never worked before. That 9 months of gap, when you go back on that first day, it is overwhelming. And it was really hard to get back to work when you have pressures of child, being at home, leaving your child there. You're emotional as well. And nobody cares because you are supposed to be 100%, you're supposed to give your best, and you have to be dedicated to your work because everybody else is pulling their weight off. And when I was working at Amazon, and leadership principles were embedded in my DNA, and I was very, very, I cared about ownership a lot, and I would not do injustice to somebody else by leaving home early while somebody else is pulling my weight up. So that was really important for me. So that is a personal value as well. But what really helped at that point was talking to other women who were much more senior, who have been through that process and were still working at Amazon. And I just approached one of them and I said, how do you do that? Because you have family and you've done everything, and I really struggle. And she started giving me tips. She said, have you thought about this? Can you send delegates to meeting? Can you make sure you are attending meetings in the morning? Can you do this? And there were loads of tips, very simple things to do, but it actually made me stay there because it made my life much more easier. I never used to work from home because I was so dedicated. I had to be there in the office because the projects are crucial to me. But one day if I worked from home, it was okay. I was able to manage work-life balance, so that was really important to me. Sorry, what was your question again?
How we encourage more women to become mentors?
Okay, so from that perspective, gender is important because you have to have somebody who understands your problem. So when it comes to maternity, female problems and stuff, obviously you need female mentors. Apart from that, for everything else, it is gender agnostic. I have had the best mentorships for problems that are not women related from men, and I love that because my support system is working with these people. They have been encouraging, supportive, and have gone beyond their means to support me. So it is really important when you understand what you need from somebody. So when you are young in your career, formal mentorship helps a lot because you need structure, you need guidance. When you start excelling in your role, and when you have that wealth of experience behind you, you need to understand where can you get, what can you pick up as with your busy schedule, and informally mentoring helps a lot. And for me, that has been crucial. Irrespective of the gender, who can help me and where can I reach out to? So that is important aspect. Yes, irrespective of being men or women, we should help each other out. We should look for opportunities to help others out. If you see somebody is struggling in something, reach out to them. It doesn't have to be male, female. Just reach out. Make sure that they understand you are available. You understand the concern. Talk to them. And that is being available. You don't need a formal program or label something to help somebody out. Just do that.
Can I mention really quickly as well, just on that point before I forget, because we talk about the importance of female mentors for female mentees, but it's not a case of just trying to match women with women and men with men. It's really important actually that we have, you hear a lot in the media, one of the problems is actually finding senior men that are willing to mentor younger females. And actually it's really important because without them also, in terms of the benefits of the mentor, understanding the issues that their female mentees are experiencing. Sorry.
I was going to ask, because I don't understand all the terms, the reverse mentoring, is that about helping to educate, for example, senior males about
Yes,
that's
how
exactly
they
right.
can get
Exactly.
work roles?
Yes.
And how does that work? Because that's really interesting. That's a difficult one, I think.
It is, and I mean that's why I wanted to highlight it, because it's actually really important that male mentors have female mentees as well, and vice versa, because we need to understand the issues that we're all having, and that comes in a two-way dialogue. So we touched briefly on the sort of benefits for mentees. I think we mostly discussed at the beginning, but obviously there are huge benefits for the mentor as well, particularly within company mentorship schemes, of actually hearing, at the ground level what the issues their colleagues are facing, and from a perspective perhaps that they would never have thought about, as we said, talking about some of the issues with returning to work and around maternity. They need to be speaking to their female colleagues as well. So although we talk about the importance of encouraging more female mentors, which obviously we all stand by that, we have to recognise we don't want to put men off from taking on female mentees as well. It's very important.
And for some people, especially in tech, you may not have access to many senior women to help mentor you. So that doesn't mean that you can't be mentored. You just need to find someone. And what I found as someone, my first mentor is actually male, and he was actually one of my legendary mentors as well. And I believe that the reason why he was so keen to help and to make sure I grew in the right way was because he also had a daughter around a little bit older, my age. And I found throughout my career, finding senior men that had daughters were the most supportive ones, even if they're younger daughters, younger than yourselves, because they're thinking, oh, my daughter is going to face these problems, like, you know, in the next 10 years. How can I make sure that she has a great working environment? I found men with daughters actually were incredible mentors.
Wow.
I completely resonate that, because when I was referring to the mentor I really look up to, he had 2 daughters. They were very young, but yes, he treated me like, yes, I understand your problems, work together, and he really had an influence on me.
Yeah, that's the way to relate, have daughters.
But I think encouraging more women to become mentors or mentees or whatever, I mean, it's quite a big problem in society, people having imposter syndrome, feeling that they're not good enough or they don't have enough knowledge yet. But like you touched on earlier, you said that actually everyone's got something to give, even if it's giving the opposite perspective of, so if a senior is telling a junior how to do something and then, oh, but the junior's not getting it, I don't understand, why are they not getting this? The senior might have forgotten what a junior doesn't know.
Exactly.
So
language thing.
You know, you can benefit both ways, and I think just getting yourself out there and offering that help, offering, you know, your advice or whatever, or asking that person like, how do I do this? I saw you did that really well, you know, can you help me with it? So yeah, just getting yourself out there.
Yeah, very, very nice.
I just wanted to add one thing to it for every woman here, that if you have problems, irrespective of who your manager is, irrespective of the gender, be open about it, talk about it. Somebody can only help you if they know what your problem is. We sometimes keep a cocoon around ourselves because we think either the person knows about it, he's not aware, or he's not aware of it, or he doesn't want to be aware. It's always worth raising it, talking about it, because you have to make the effort for somebody to understand your perspective, your issues. So that is really, really important.
Yeah, excellent points. I think we're going to move on to discussing the importance of mentoring programs, which is quite an interesting one. So a recent study in Forbes magazine discussed how mentoring will become a business priority for several organisations. So interestingly enough, almost all Fortune 500 companies have active mentoring programs, and this will be a focus that will specifically grow in smaller organisations. So, in your opinions, are there professional mentoring programs within the tech industry, and do people have a clear understanding or idea of what they want to achieve from a mentoring program? So, can we start with you, Vicky?
So I don't know specifically for the tech industry as such.
So perhaps the second part you can answer in terms of what people want to achieve from a mentoring program, because there's something.
Yeah, so when I've set up mentoring programs before, I think it's really important to understand as an organisation what you want to achieve from what are the kind of the success measures that you want to achieve. And I think for me previously it's about so working in the global organisation, trying to share the knowledge on a global basis. So for example, matching up a mentee in London with a mentor in Australia, and kind of having that cross-function, cross-section mentoring and collaboration was really useful. I think it's about encouraging good talent management mechanisms, and I think it's it's just about having a program which is accessible, but also so when we've measured the programs that I've had that I've put into place, we was able to demonstrate that people who were involved in the mentoring program, whether as mentors or mentees, were twice as likely to stay with the company and 3 times as likely to be promoted to the next job level. So there are some kind of retention, engagement and success stories to have from having a mentoring program, a corporate mentoring program internally in a business. And I know that I'm looking to set that up in Gravitas, so watch this space.
Yeah, it looks like we've got time for one more to share their thoughts. So Sam, would you like to share your thoughts on this particular?
Oh goodness, I might be the worst person to share my I've worked in startup companies, so I've got no corporate experience whatsoever. I started my companies from scratch, but they sound fantastic anyway.
Giselle, would you like to share your thoughts?
Sure. So I've been through a few formal mentorship programs, some of them within the corporate world. I actually done one in the startup world that didn't complete. It's kind of your requirements there is different in those accelerators. And I think what makes a successful mentorship program, it's very much a lot of the things that we were speaking about here, and it's having mentors that are actually passionate about giving back and helping develop their mentees. One thing that I think do not make a successful mentorship program is mentoring within your same division. I think that is important to have someone that's understand the job that you're doing, but it's not necessarily important to have someone that can influence your career trajectory, because you need to have that that space that you can be completely honest with your mentor about the problems that you're having, and that is not going to come back and nip you in the bum later. If you're having problems, sometimes the problems might be due to management. Sometimes it could be you're not getting the support that you need to be able to complete the task or to grow or develop. Sometimes it might mean that you're thinking to move roles into somewhere else and you need that little bit of advice on how to secure that new job. And having someone that can relate in that they understand your role and they understand what you contribute, but they can still give you good advice is very important. And I think having that structure and having a fixed length, it's very important as well. I like the idea of switching mentors. You would need different mentors at different times in your life. I think that's something that Vicky mentioned. And sometimes having the formal mentorship, and you can do formal and informal alongside each other. The formal mentorship tend to be for a fixed amount of time, like 6 months to a year, and I think that's a good time to help with goals, with problems that you've identified or goals that you have, like promotion and developmental. But I think if you want a more immediate result, then maybe informal mentorship might be the way to go, and also it's being tracked offline, which is it can be important as well, depending on the people that you're matched with, if they're just within your org structure.
Brilliant. Well, thank you to our lovely speakers for sharing your knowledge and wisdom on the power of mentoring. We're going to move on to the Q&A session. I think it's a great opportunity for the audience to ask any questions they may have. So, does anyone have any questions for our speakers? Yes?
I suppose it's not really a question, it's more an observation. It's absolutely great what you're all doing, and it's really, really interesting to hear what you say. I think there is an aspect of mentoring that needs to be a focus for particularly women in IT, anybody who's in an area that they're not necessarily, I suppose I'm talking about diversity, equality and inclusion, that lots of navigating through an organisation is about the culture of the organisation, it is about that. So while it's great to get the development bit, and I think, 100% support that, because you do need mentors to be able to kind of hone your area of expertise. I think the next bit is about, I've done mentoring before, when I've done mentoring, it's usually about how people can move out of the organisation and not letting them go up the ladder or get the jobs that they're entitled to because they've got the experience. I think that's a growing area of mentoring, about helping people to navigate through culture, through equality, diversity and inclusion issues. I'm a director in IT, and there's not many organisations where I've worked in where I'm not the only woman in the meeting. Lots of them, and there's lots of conversations that happen where they forget that I'm there. They just think that I'm just another male that's there with them. And you have to choose your battles, and I think that's one of the key things around mentoring, particularly as women in an IT environment, that you can't fight every battle, so you can't kind of challenge everything that you hear, but you have to have the skills to know when to challenge and when to intervene, and actually when to tell your mentee that actually
get all of that experience and mentoring around that particular area of expertise, whether it's development, etc. But actually, if you want to move up in that organisation, you're ready now. You just have to move out. And sometimes it's just about being as honest as that, because you can't find every culture and diversity issue, particularly for women and black women as well. I think that's a real challenge, because it's, you know, it's not the fault of all the individuals that are in the organisation, that the organisation is stopping people that are maybe not male and white and middle class from moving. So you have to find sort of techniques to cope with that. You don't want particularly young people to get disillusioned that they're doing all this great stuff, because mentoring is great, it's absolutely great, you should all adopt it, but don't think it's the answer to everything, because you do have to get other types of mentoring to cope with culture, aspects in the organisation. Going into a meeting and all talking about football, the amount of times I've heard that, I've gone, Exactly. So sorry to all you men out there, I'm not saying that in a disparaging way, I'm just being realistic about some of the other things.
I think that is a very interesting point as well. Like, for my entire career, I've never been mentored by a black woman, and it's not. Well, I guess one big problem was that there weren't many black women that were senior within finance. You can't find, now there are a little bit more than they used to be, but that hasn't prevented me from getting some of the benefits from mentorship from what has been predominant. Now that you made me think about it, it's been all white men. It's like, but it works. I mean, so far I've still been able to get all of the benefits of mentorship. So that the cultural element, I try to find that elsewhere in my informal mentorships.
And you're absolutely right, I'm not wanting to disparage in that, but I've been working 35 years. I had these conversations 30 years ago, and I'm having the same conversations. So you can only, in the moment, try and help as many people as you can. So I'm not kind of saying don't do it.
But I mean, it's interesting, because what you're basically saying is women aren't necessarily coming to you to ask for the skills, which we're all really good at, which is why we're really in our jobs and we're progressing really well. They're actually coming to you about these very issues, aren't they? I mean, how is it? Why am I being overlooked? Is it because I've got children and they think I can't do the hours? Is it because, etc.? So that's why I asked the earlier question about reverse mentoring, because that's the first time I've actually heard it, and perhaps it's because I haven't been in a large corporation for about 15 years. So maybe that's what I don't know. And that sounds, I don't know if I'm interpreting it the right way, but that actually sounds like a really key skill to me to get on board. And I'm really fascinated to hear from you how you can do that, and how we can all, even at my age, learn that technique, because that would break the barriers. That's what needs to happen, it feels to me.
I think that's quite difficult for an individual to do. It's more for the organisation to recognise that it's needed.
But if you're in HR and you're setting up a mentoring programme,
but I think this is
you out.
It doesn't necessarily need to be a large corporate. I think smaller organisations can learn from corporates, and the reverse mentoring is, I think it's critical. So like you, I've been in the workplace for 35, 36 years. The problems haven't changed. The problems are different. The generation is massively different. And if our generation don't open up to listen to the younger generation, it's going to make it extremely difficult for those people to get through and to resolve some of those problems. I think the other thing with a question for you guys, I suppose, for somebody to ask for mentoring takes an awful lot of courage, especially in a culture where it isn't encouraged or it's not open. So I don't know if any of you have got an example of how did you get your first mentor?
So for me, there's in Investec, there was a director, and she was awesome. She was really, really good. Like, whenever she spoke, really, really good. But I felt like there was too much of a barrier for me to ask her for mentoring. But I felt more comfortable asking for help from my peers, people from similar level. But obviously that's not beneficial, because obviously it's beneficial, but it's not as beneficial as asking for people who are upper level. So I think that's where company backing would really help, like saying, look, these people have got allotted these afternoons each month, or every few weeks or whatever, to like help you and talk to you, and I think that could really assist that.
I think directors as well. So I literally before coming here, I met with a young girl who joined our organisation 4 months ago, and I'm a director in my company, and it had come to my attention that she had problems, and I put time aside to meet with her and understand what those problems are. So I think it is up to senior people within the organisation to be open, and by doing that, that sets an example for others as well.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. When I, probably your age, anywhere near that now, but growing up, having children and working as well. And I remember once, this was when I was team leader level, so a few years after I've been working, and I remember walking in once at 9:30, and one of my colleagues, my peers, who was a team leader as well, said, "Oh, good afternoon, Yasmin." So I looked at him and I said, "Gosh," I said, "do you know that I've taken the kids to school, I've had to drop each one of them at school. I've made the dinner, the evening dinner, so that when I come in I just need to put it in the oven. I put the washing in the washing machine, and at lunchtime I have to go shopping. Did your wife get up and make your breakfast for you this morning? You just got dressed and put into work." He never said that to me again. He was so sorry. It's those sorts of things that, there's a lot of men willing to learn and understand that, and I think having women that can help at that level and the kind of things do it is also helpful as well. I think you people are doing a great thing.
I think you spot on about the culture, because for me I think you need to lead by example, and for me that is really important. For me, my team is my family, so I know when somebody is upset, I can look at their faces and I know there is a problem there, and what takes priority for me is the individual. That is the most important thing for me. I would cancel anything over my people who work for me, and that is really important. What kind of environment do we have? At Reed we have a family culture, so for me the happiness of my team and the people I work is of prime importance, and that is really valuable for me. You can speak to the team and you can speak to individuals, but that is my top priority. I would cancel anything if somebody needs me, and that is the first thing I cater to within the company. And I see the same kind of behaviors. People put others first, and that's what they emulate within the business. So whenever anybody joins our company, the first thing they talk about is the people, because people put their interests before theirs and they work together to help each other out. And that is really important, because
I think that perspective is great. I don't know necessarily you get that. I'm not saying all men, because you would get it from some, but generally you won't get that perspective.
Yes.
So that's absolutely excellent. That's a good part in the head.
And you are a director of a company now, so you've done really well for yourself after going through all the struggles. But what I would like to say, that every woman, you would not have people who are as like-minded as you are. There would be people who would have biases. There would be people, but the most important thing is compromise where you can, but fight for things that matter to you, and never bow down where you think you do disagree with something from the core of your heart. I have never compromised where I don't want to.
I agree, but you have to choose your battles, or you're having a battle every day.
Exactly.
What about this side of the audience? This side of being quite expressive.
I've got a question, not exactly related to the discussion we were just having, but in my organisation there's like a mentorship scheme that's like corporate mentorship, and I've got a problem where my mentor, I feel like he would put the needs of the company above the needs of myself, so like he would rather keep me on a project for a long time where I'm not learning as much because the client would rather me on the project than someone else. And I wonder like how you deal with a similar situation, like if you feel like your mentor is not always looking for what's best for you.
You need to end the mentorship program.
I didn't want to be the one to say it, but it's true. Because it might be a corporate one.
Yes,
so you
and the thing is, if you have to, like, the thing is, he's not the only person who can mentor you. Look for people outside, your peers, other network outside. You are here today. There's so many people around here. Ask one of us. We would be more than happy to help you. But that's all it is about. There must be one thing he must be good at. Absorb as much as you can from him.
Yeah.
Other things, I have 2 years.
Yeah.
I think with the corporate mentorship programs as well, what I was really clear about when I was setting up the program, that not every relationship is going to be effective, and actually having that open and transparent relationship and being able to say to somebody, a two-way, like either the mentee's not driving the relationship or the mentor's not answering the mentee's needs, or actually it's just as basic as the chemistry between the mentee and the mentor doesn't work, and actually being able to end that relationship in a transparent, open, honest, professional way. It's not failure, it's actually, do you know what, you may be an amazing mentor for somebody else, but actually for me now, this is not what I need. And I was really clear when I spent a lot of time, I ran webinars for all of our mentors, webinars for all of our mentees, trying to sort of establish what the protocols were and giving people the kind of confidence to end or run with those relationships professionally. And as a HR support in the company was also like, do you know what, if there's challenges that come up in the relationship that you maybe don't feel confident or equipped to deal with, as Shilpi says, look for the support around you to either deal with those or end the relationship if you're not getting what you need out of it.
It could be that your mentor is too close to...
Yeah.
It's too close. Like I said, try to find... It's better to find someone that can relate to the job that you do, but don't have an impact on your promotion or your workload, or because that way they can give really good feedback and you can be very honest.
And also, I think it's worth speaking to other people who are being mentored. Is it a company-wide problem that you are pairing people with who work very closely together? So there is a conflict. There can be a conflict of interest there.
Did you have any choice? Sorry, I was going to ask you. Did you have a choice in this match of mentor, or were you literally just assigned someone?
It is quite a small company. Like we've got about 40 people, and everybody has a mentor. So it's just like when you join, who's at the level that they're senior enough to have a mentor, and they've got the fewest mentors. Okay, the new person gets paired with that person, but they don't look into whether they would be a good fit or not.
It sounds more like a buddy system than a mentorship. Yeah.
But it's like once a week we meet, they coach us, they try and help us to reach our goals. And
I mean, you could use that person for a different goal that you're trying to achieve that is more aligned to what they're doing, and then you can try to find somebody else to mentor you for something else. There's nothing wrong with having a whole range of mentors. The more the merrier. There's no one. It's not like a soulmate.
Okay.
Do they review this from a company point of view? Do they review the sort of the feedback on an ongoing basis on how those relationships are working? Have you got a sort of a feedback mechanism to a program manager? No.
Don't be afraid to look outside your workplace. So if you, I think a lot of companies are doing these programs to tick a box. It's the same with diversity and inclusion. A lot of companies will do it to tick a box. If you find that's not working for you, don't be afraid to look outside. Don't be afraid to pick somebody in this room. Do you know what I mean?
Don't be afraid to drop him.
Yeah. And the nuclear option.
In a professional way.
In a very professional way, of course.
Yeah. And the nuclear option, if you don't like other aspects of your job, find a new job. There are loads out there.
There are also loads of people in this room.
Yes, only by chance, 2 weeks ago, I was in another meeting like that. We have again exactly the same topic. It was very interesting for me to listen to you because somehow they kind of complement each other. And I've got one tip I want to share with you. One of the guests, she was very much learning about computer. She said that instead of being a senior director, she went through various mentorship programs. She said, yes, there's something called Clifton Strengths. They said, some of you heard about it. What she said, to use that as a starting point for discussion, because she said what she found when she was asked to mentor someone, so this might be a small point for people here listening to you, is that often people don't realize their strengths. So doing a test which will help you to have like a starting point for discussion, and often that leads to the next. So why you never thought about it? So she gave like an extreme example that someone who was introvert actually came out as an amazing public speaker through going through the strengths. So concentrating on strengths and building that what is maybe unknown to the individual. Because that's what you do. You go with your kind of strength where you're comfortable. It's like you say, how do you start that dialogue? You should come prepared. If you have something like that, and she said, in her team she does that once a year, because she said people are changing, people are moving, evolving, and that is helping everyone to feel more comfortable with challenging the status quo, like you were saying. Well, how do I go out of this job which isn't working for me? Concentrate on the strengths. It's like if you went and did that test and say, actually, look, this is my strength, I want to work on that. And then you kind of changing the relationship and changing the discussion that you are in charge of. Because after all, it should be working for you, not that a boss is telling you what to do. I feel that is taking advantage of calling something mentorship and actually training someone on the job. And one more thing is, I came across one company where they were saying, if you want to be a team leader, you should mentor someone first. And I wonder whether that is missing from the personal development of people, that it's not about putting someone on the spot, but how can you be a good manager if you've never mentored anyone in your life? You just ticking boxes and just handing out tasks to do, that's not management, anyone can do it. Maybe that's just a kind of a missing step in personal development for future leaders. They should be coached on it, they should ask for help and so on. I don't know about HR, that's HR look at?
So that when we were looking in the program that we implemented, that was exactly one of the kind of promotion areas. So basically, everybody who was in the program had to have a personal development plan in place. For our mentors, we put a level in, so it was your team leader, your senior consultants, and so your senior recruiters and above. And then it was about exactly that. So giving the mentors the kind of scoping out what the benefits for them were, and part of that is developing their leadership skills and developing their talent management skills, and absolutely then linking that into promotion plans. So actually you do need to have been part of the mentoring program and effectively developed and mentored someone. It was another addition to the promotion plans. But yeah, absolutely something that I think should be considered. And you're absolutely right. People get promoted for technical reasons or for doing their job, and actually that's just the next logical step. But they're not getting those kind of leadership capabilities or those leadership competencies. And mentoring absolutely develops a mentor as much as it's developing a mentee, and a mentor should be open to the development that they're getting as part of those programs. And I would always try and push that from a program manager point of view.
It's a really interesting perspective, though, because I guess in terms of thinking about the difference between what actually is a mentor, because none of us have had any, I imagine, I'm going to presume that none of us have been trained to be mentors. Excuse me, it's just something that's developed. Yeah. So who's assessing what is a good mentor? And for me, I think it's distinguishing the difference between coaching, which can happen within companies, and that's very much about there's someone needs a skill, you're passing on, you're imparting knowledge to that person. Mentoring for me, or the way I've always viewed it, and whether this is right or wrong, this is just my opinion, is more about listening and about being there to actually be almost a sounding board for the other individual and hear what the issues are, and then obviously talk through the issues based on your own experiences. So for me, mentoring is less about kind of the coaching, an individual, and more about the just listening to them and understanding what their problems are.
I think it opens up by just doing that. You're focusing on your own development and you're focusing on someone else's development, and those are really great leadership competencies
it's how you
to
learn.
be developing. It's exactly
you
how
can't
you
learn if you just talk at someone.
Exactly.
So
so
it
I
has
think
to come the other way.
it's a really important point.
Do you think it depends what you want to get out of it? Because a mentor within an organisation can help somebody to navigate through that organisation if they want to stay there, or if they want to develop, skills that will give them,
get them to a higher level promotion. There are lots of people that aren't working in organisations that have got transferable skills that would be great in mentoring, because they do other things that add great value, maybe to communities and things. So I suppose it depends what you want to get out of it, what your mentor can do for you. I think within an organisation you get different types of mentors, and the majority that I've seen are the ones that will help you navigate within that organisation, not necessarily out to another organisation, because they've been there for a long time and they can help you to move from this job to that job or develop this skill. So it depends on the individual what they want to do, I suspect.
Just going back to the topic of increasing women mentors, what do you think you gain the most as a mentor?
Being a woman, or just as a mentor?
Just as a mentor, what do you gain from it? What do you value from that relationship?
Yes, so I think there is a lot you learn as a mentor as well, because you're working with different personalities, different style. Like some people, when they are there for help, they need some help in certain kind. By help I mean they need support, or they need coaching, or they need guidance, and that's what they are here for. And it allows you to tailor yourself to be better at different styles of mentoring, or sharing idea sharing, or talking to people because I was very blunt personally. I am a very honest person, so I would be just like, if I am talking to somebody and they ask me for advice, I'll be very open and honest with the advice. But for some others, it is not easy to take that advice. So it was through working with different people, I learned how can I give advice and be honest without hurting somebody's sentiment. How can I be constructive about it? How can I still be diplomatic and be helpful to that individual without taking the honesty away? And that's what I learned from that. And now I am much more diplomatic, but I put my point across in a way which can be taken by anybody.
So for me, it's really rewarding seeing, after directing someone somewhere, seeing them implement that and start doing that thing. It feels like you've done something worthwhile. You haven't just been talking to a plant pot and nothing's happened. And it feels like, it's really rewarding, and it also helps with your communication skills, because I would communicate in a way that I would like to hear it, but obviously if I find that that's not resulting in the person understanding, then I realise, maybe I need to explain this in a different way, and then obviously that's a transferable skill that you can use elsewhere. So
I think there's an opportunity there for self-reflection as well, to some extent, and as we said about the listening component and understanding, particularly within a corporate environment or an environment where you're working with people, what the issues might be as a senior individual, assuming that with that particular relationship. But even just for me, I'm in a startup, I've made a lot of mistakes, and I talk a lot about my failures when I'm talking to my mentees, because that tends to be the easiest way to describe to them things not to do. And the whole point of me obviously imparting that to them is that I want them not to make the same mistakes that I did. So there's an element of self-reflection on where I went wrong, and thinking through the process, actually what would I have done differently. It does make you stop and think when you're going, it's all well and good to say, well, this didn't work, but actually with the hindsight, what would I have done differently, it does make you think and break down and understand more about yourself as well. So there definitely is a sort of two-way benefit.
And to extend your point, if you're saying something to someone and saying this is the best way to do something, or this is how you should be doing something, and they ask why, and you're like, I don't know, I'm going to look that up. Oh yeah, that's why I do it. And then you can remind yourself, or actually reassess why you're doing something, and go, actually I'm going to do it some other way.
So, and it's okay as a mentor as well to say, I don't know. I've said that lots when people have asked me questions. That's a great question. I don't know the answer to that, so let's go and explore it together and talk about it. And you're both learning at that point as well.
For me...
Oh, sorry.
No,
Giselle, you go ahead.
No, after you. For me, one of the greatest, and it's kind of, it's weird, but it's just that nice feeling. So that you've helped someone, and that is something that I take away. Early on in my career, I wish I had the level of support that I have now. I could have gotten much further, and to help someone at the start of their career, not make the same mistakes that I made, to help propel them in a way that someone wasn't able to do for me. It gives me this warm, fuzzy feeling. And I'm a sucker for a little bit of charity. I love helping people grow and develop, or any way that I can use my own skills to help somebody else. So I love that. And with mentorship, it really gives you that. It gives you that, you reflect on yourself, you think about, oh, actually, maybe that experience was not as, terrible as I thought it. Not as terrible as I thought it was at the time, because you learned something from it, and then imparting that wisdom in somebody else so they don't make the same mistakes and they grow and develop is rewarding. It's lovely.
And I think while we've all tried to be very practical in our response to your question in terms of giving benefits, I think that's probably the main reason a lot of us do it. And we don't necessarily say it straight up, but it does give you a really warm, fuzzy feeling to help other people. So it's just a nice thing to do.
I had a question about, do you see more of mentors or more of mentees in the world? Like, you have organized a lot of mentorship relationship as such. So is there an abundance of mentees, or is there abundance of them? Where's the demand, where's the supply?
So I've never, it's always balanced out, because actually, so it's always been, I've always had a lot of interest from mentees, but actually there's always, you'll find that if I've approached someone and said, I've got this person who's looking for these skills, actually I think you'd be a really great mentor, but they haven't necessarily volunteered for the mentoring program, I've never ever had anyone go, no, I'm not going to do that. So actually you can always find someone, I think. I've never not found a mentor for a mentee by just approaching someone, and actually that's a really great way of kind of getting more women involved in a program, because actually women might not necessarily volunteer themselves because for whatever reason they feel that they haven't got the kind of credibility or the experience to offer, but actually by just going up to somebody and saying, do you know what, I think you can offer this and this, and it's exactly what this mentee needs. Very rarely would I get anyone say, no, I'm not going to help. The only reason would be if they didn't have time at that particular moment. So whereas it's always great, mentees will always come forward, you can always find a mentor, and that goes back to my point right at the beginning. If you're looking outside of a kind of a structured program or a corporate program, just ask, and people will very rarely, apart from time constraints, say no.
Any more questions? One last one?
My question is around just that I feel like you've been talking about mentees find mentors within like an existing network, and how, for example, if I want to approach one of you ladies and you don't know me, I don't know you, how would I approach that without it looking overwhelming to you, or like it being like a cold email? Like that's where I feel like I struggle to find.
Can I start with that one?
Yeah.
So I'll tell you a little story about my very first mentorship. So when the lady that left asked, how did you go about approaching people to be a mentor? So out of university, I'm a very proactive person. I love planning. I'm good at that. I read all the books. I was like, okay, I'm going to go into finance. I'm going to I'm going to work my butt off and get promoted in 2 years. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. As part of that, I need a mentor, I've decided. And I looked around and I couldn't find many women in industry at the time. And I came across women in technology. Some of you may have heard of them, like Maggie Berry. incredible woman. And I walked up to her after an event and I was like, hey, I've been coming to a few of these events because she had this organization that put on networking events for women in technology to come together. I was like, I'm looking for a mentor. Would you be my mentor? She was so shocked, and then she was like, oh, she's like, let me have a think about it. And then she took my details, and at first I was so like, yeah, I'm going to go in there, I'm going to ask her to be my mentor, and she's going to say yes, and it's going to be wonderful. And then she came back and she said, actually, what you're looking for, I don't have the skills. However, I know all of these people that do have the skills. So attending an event just like this was and the person that she recommended was one of my first mentors as well, who are absolutely incredible. And she's one of the people that actually helped me in my transition from technical software developer into business analysis, because her skills are those analysis where she came from the software development background. And you know, you go to all of these events and don't be shy about it. Don't know if I would be as brazen as I was, but try it anyway. But be prepared for someone to say no, and that's the worst thing they can say to you is no. But I encourage anyone, if anyone ever come up to you and approach you to be a mentor, don't say no. Look within your network to find someone, because even if you can't do it, there must be someone you know that has the skill set that you're looking for. Like, even if you have 10 people in your network, there must be one person or two people that can provide that person with the knowledge that they, or the bit of guidance that they need. So, yeah, networking.
Well, thank you, speakers, for sharing all your opinions, and also the questions that we had were obviously very interesting. I think we're going to move on to the networking side. So yeah, thank you all for coming along. I really hope that you gained as much as I did, personally speaking. It was very informative. We have an information pack as well as a questionnaire for you to fill out, just to get your feedback on how you found the event. So please be sure to fill that out before you decide to go. But yeah, thank you very much.